All right, settle down, settle down. Today, as part of our continued training in riot control, we're going to show you a film which reviews our division in action in our state mission, particularly in natural disasters and civil disturbances. Keep in mind that this film ties in directly with our federal mission during times of national emergency. The procedures shown in the various training scenes can be applied anywhere in the world under wartime conditions. Okay, let it roll.
This was the scene at Oak Lawn, Illinois, shortly after a devastating tornado touched down and cut a path through the center of the village. The storm claimed 30 lives and destroyed millions in property. In the aftermath of the storm, the mayor of Oak Lawn and the sheriff of Cook County appealed to the governor of Illinois for National Guard assistance. It was granted immediately. This is the headquarters for the Illinois National Guard at the State Armory at Springfield as the Adjutant General, Major General Leo M. Boyle arrives to implement the governor's executive order that will send Illinois Army Guardsmen into the disaster area. In Chicago, elements of the famed 33rd Division Illinois Army National Guard are dispatched to the disaster site immediately. The Guardsmen will assist Oak Lawn local authorities in restoring power and communication, as well as helping to maintain law and order. They assist the Oak Lawn Fire Department by containing the local population, who quickly gather to watch the firemen battle a blaze like this. Tornadoes always produce tremendous damage and debris, and the job of cleaning it up becomes the order of the day to these Illinois Guardsmen. It's just plain hard work. However, Guardsmen face up to this task as part of their state mission, one that they are trained to fulfill. These members of the 108th Engineer Battalion are seen operating heavy equipment, employing special skills they acquired through training in the National Guard. These skills are often used in their civilian jobs as well. Some jobs call for a pair of good arms and strong backs, like in these scenes. There are no shortcuts to removing fallen trees, and there are lots of them in this devastated area. Helping tornado victims search for personal effects is another unpleasant duty Guardsmen performed in Oak Lawn. Predicting where or when a tornado will strike is impossible. However, it is comforting to a community to know that there are citizen soldiers in each state ready to respond to a call for help in an emergency, as victims of this disastrous tornado will acknowledge. These scenes are a grim testimonial of the tremendous destructive force that nature can inflict on a community at any moment. The National Guard is the only force immediately available to a governor of a state to meet such an emergency. When a job is finished in one area, the Guardsmen move to another. That is, after a fast coffee and donut break provided by the smiling Red Cross worker. Guardsmen perform other duties in disaster areas, like protecting property from looters or keeping the curious spectators who just want to see the tornado damage from overrunning the area. The Guard's orders are, keep them out, and out they stay. All in a day's work for these Illinois Army National Guardsmen. This is Chicago, Illinois, looking west on a hot, humid summer evening. Everything appeared normal. The local population was just settling down for the night to keep cool. That is, some of the local population. A unit of the Chicago Police Department was on a routine call when this explosive situation took place. Police arrested individuals in the area immediately as a measure to prevent the violence from spreading. A call went out for police reinforcements. More arrests followed. Still, the violent incidents continued to escalate. One violent act followed another. Police authority was challenged in different sections of the area as arrests continued, while the situation appeared to become a major disorder. Some of those arrested were carrying weapons. In this instance, it should be noted that the successful accomplishment of an act of violence can set off a chain reaction of violence within an area previously peaceful. This was the exact situation in the previous scenes. Chicago police were now faced with other detrimental factors. Looting and fires appeared on the scene. Experience here and in other American cities where riots took place reflected that the utter disregard for law and order are the direct result of confusion and violence among people who, under normal conditions, would not commit an unlawful act. Riot patterns include the looting and burning of homes and business establishments. The psychology of burning a looted business or residence is to destroy any evidence that might lead to the looters. Histories of riots here and in other cities show that liquor stores are the targets of rioters. Consumption of liquor will further incite a mob. The empty bottles are then used to make Molotov cocktails. As arrests continued, the situation became worse. Chicago's police were being committed over a larger area. Power lines and fire hoses were cut in some sections, which set the scene for further acts of violence. Police searched darkened establishments for looters as new fires broke out around the riot area. With the larger number of its police forces committed to the riot area, the situation still showed no sign of decreasing violence. Incidents of violence against the police continued. Looting and fires were on the increase. All of these factors combined created an almost impossible situation for the enforcement of law and order. Weary policemen were now confronted with the additional dangers of snipers. In several incidents, Chicago police were fired upon by snipers who used the cover of darkness to carry out their acts of violence. Chicago's police performed in a manner becoming one of this nation's larger metropolitan cities. In enforcing the law in a countless number of instances during this riotous situation, there were no incidents of serious injury or fatality due to police action. Yet on several occasions, police were subjected to sniper fire and mob violence. Plagued by the spread of new violence, the overcommitment of police forces in manpower capability, new fires, and increased looting, Chicago's mayor asked the governor for National Guard assistance. The governor reacted quickly, and once again the Adjutant General put the order into effect that sent Major General Francis P. Kane and his staff to their command post headquarters out at Chicago's Northwest Armory. Having already met with Chicago's police superintendent on a basic plan, General Kane orders his chief of staff, Colonel Stephen Crane, to meet with Chicago police officials to work out the final details. Meanwhile, the calls are already in progress that will bring Illinois citizen soldiers from their homes and jobs to the Armory. One call after another, from one guardsman to another, by radio and television, the familiar order goes out. "We're being called up. Report to your unit immediately." Guardsmen proceed by car, public transportation. They pick one another up. They get to the Armory any way they can and quickly. Guardsmen arrive at the Armory to do a job, not one they particularly like, but one they know must be done.
This is my lucky day.
What a crowd.
Pick up that rifle. Here we go again. Here we go again.
Not far from the National Guard Armory, Chicago police officials meet at Central Police Headquarters. The Guard Chief of Staff and the Chief of Chicago's Uniformed Police, Captain John T. Kelly, elaborate on the orders they received from their respective superiors to coordinate operations between Guard and police forces. Each officer present represents a force or operation that will ultimately restore law and order to the riot-stricken area. Their only concern is to protect lives and property and to maintain law and order. Having agreed upon their respective responsibilities, they return to their units to carry out the plan.
All right, second squad, draw your weapon. Okay, let's go.
At the armory, guardsmen draw equipment and weapons that they will need to fulfill their part of the operation. The uncertainty of what might happen weighs heavily in their minds. However, the thought that they represent the side of the law and order precludes any doubt to their minds as to the outcome of this column.
Second squad, move out, outside.
General Kane now issues some final orders to his headquarters staff.
This is the dangerous area. This is where police experienced sniper fire last night. My orders are that if our men are fired upon, they are to return the fire and shoot to kill.
Shoot to kill. Very strong language to a guardsman, but there's strong words for the snipers too. These guardsmen know that unless they are fired upon first, they'll never have to carry out that order. As the troops move out to the riot area, it is interesting to note that riots are not exclusively credited to the space age era. Violent expression was first recorded in the year 1794 when the first disturbance of record dealt with the federal government over an excise tax on corn liquor and took place in 4 counties of Pennsylvania. Since then, there have been many such riotous incidents, including a countless number of motivating factors. The worst riot of record in Chicago took place in 1894. 20 were killed in connection with railroad strikes. It took a total force of 14,000 militia, police and law enforcement officials to restore order. Once the guardsmen reach the riot area, they are stationed in positions where groups or gatherings might form. It is their responsibility to see that these groups are dispersed. Guardsmen restrict areas where power plants or utilities are located. They are usually the targets for rioters. Locations where known sniper activity was reported are heavily patrolled. Snipers will report of firing from rooftops in this vicinity. Patrolling both sides of the main streets, guardsmen are alert to any unusual or suspicious incidents. They are in close contact with one another and maintain direct radio contact with their respective command posts. Guard vehicles crowd the streets to reinforce patrolling elements if the situation would require it. All day and into the night, guardsmen patrol their stations. Fortunately, the presence of these Illinois National Guardsmen in force and armed had a positive effect, and the violence diminished to isolated incidents. On into the long night and over several days, guardsmen maintained their peace-producing vigil. The advent of a cooling rain shower improved the situation even more as disturbances diminished to the uneventful level. Finally, only a few minor incidents involving cranks remained on the scene. Police units once again were in full control of the situation as guardsmen were gradually relieved of their duties and began returning to the armory. They remained at the armories for a short period to ensure against any regeneration of violence. During this entire period of duty, a second contingency plan was in effect. It provides for additional National Guardsmen if they should be needed in a simultaneous situation, such as this demonstration march on Cicero, Illinois. This plan keeps a backup force ready to meet just such an emergency as this. Unlike the riot scenes shown previously, this is a peaceful demonstration. There were, however, potential rioters among this crowd. This one put up violent resistance against suburban police forces, much to his disadvantage. The immediate apprehension of known or obvious agitators is the first step toward preventing a disturbance from becoming a major disorder. National Guardsmen were on the scene and provided marchers with protection from the crowd, as well as protection for the crowd if marchers were incited to violence against them. There's a good example of being put right in the middle of a situation. Mob actions and ideas are like a contagious disease. They can and do spread rapidly from one person to another. For instance, a member of a crowd gets aroused by the crowd leader, and before long he has influenced the people around him. In turn, they influence the people around them. These ideas sweep to innocent bystanders, who in turn are caught in a wave of mob actions. These Illinois Guardsmen keep the two factions separated through a set procedure that they have acquired through training, as both the marchers and the crowd shout obscenities and insults at each other. The Guardsmen are qualified to meet a situation like this. They adjust themselves to the noise and confusion around them. They have been trained to realize that a mob may shout at them, call them names, throw things. They also know the importance of holding their formation and do not allow their personal feeling to interfere with the impartial execution of the mission. This was a delicate situation. These Illinois Guardsmen came to face what now became a mob condition. The marchers were halted while the guard commander ordered the mob to disperse. The mob was angered, shouted at the guardsmen. One obvious agitator was singled out by the police and was quickly pulled aside. The other elements of the mob did not react to this police action. They continued to argue and refused to disperse on the guard commander's second order. Guardsmen stood fast in a wedge formation. In instances like this, guardsmen must be prepared for weird mob actions, such as members of the mob shouting and challenging their formation. It is obvious from these scenes, these guardsmen are trained and well-disciplined in the execution of their orders. This display of organization is always the most effective force that can be applied against rioters.
Shake it, boy, you shake it! Get him out! Shoot! Get him out! Get your hands up! He can't shoot, he can't shoot. He's not making it. Go ahead! Go ahead, boy! Go ahead! Come on, boy! Come on, boy! Do it! Go ahead! Come on, you bunch of buddies right here, take care of you. Go ahead, do it! Do it, boy, do it! Go ahead! Come on, boy, go ahead!
Having warned the mob twice to disperse, the guard commander now issues a final warning and alerts the guardsmen to execute a wedge forward movement. The wedge is an offensive formation employed to split a mob into segments. The mob, now confronted with a formidable show of force by National Guardsmen, back off and are quickly dispersed over a large area. Note the soldierly posture of these guardsmen as they reflect proficiency in performing their mission. The marchers continued through to the end of their long planned route without experiencing any serious incidents, while guardsmen continued to watch them leave the area. This march ended peacefully, and these guardsmen from the 33rd Division, all citizen soldiers, once again displayed a most admirable image of their true purpose. Yes, how do guardsmen become proficient in fulfilling their mission? We'll get some of the answers to that question here at Camp Ripley, Minnesota. 2 weeks out of every year, the Illinois Army National Guard attends field training. They engage in exercises for both state and federal missions. A recent directive from the Department of Defense requires all members of the National Guard, both Army and Air, to participate in 32 hours of riot control training. Theory and the explanation of tactics precede the actual application of procedures in riot training. In this exercise, guardsmen will take the part of a mob to test the efficiency of a platoon defense. The platoon will employ wedge formation using a device known as a chemical agent disperser. An agent disperser is used to break up a mob action. It discharges finely powdered forms of agents that cause a burning or stinging sensation. It can produce tears. In part, it is designed to neutralize the rioters, yet it is actually harmless in inflicting injury. The coordinated forward movement is done in cadence as a platoon leader positioned at the rear controls the forward movement. Another wedge formation of guardsmen follows behind the first wedge as a backup force. The effectiveness of this offensive maneuver has proven satisfactory under the most actual riot conditions where it was employed. To these guardsmen, it represents training for some future encounter. This is the proving ground for the real thing. What they learn in these exercises could well make the difference between success and failure under actual conditions. By the way, the use of this agent disperser under riot conditions would depend on factors such as wind and surroundings. You can see why, Looks like these guardsmen have earned a well-deserved shower. In another category of riot control training, guardsmen prepare to simulate conditions in controlling a crowd during a demonstration march. A demonstration march is a public display of antagonism towards some social, political, or economic situation. Throughout this country, lawful demonstrations, marches, have been employed by various groups many, many times. The Guard looks upon this type of duty as one that provides the protection of life and property. Their primary purpose is to prevent disorder at the scene of a peaceful demonstration. Once again, Guardsmen execute established procedures for protecting the marchers as well as the crowds from one another. Note the almost exact formation that was seen earlier in the Cicero March and the manner in which the Guard elements move forward on each side of the simulated marchers. These Guardsmen are trained to understand that any mass demonstration can get out of control at any moment. The impetus can come from anywhere in the crowd or from the marchers themselves. Maintaining the formation and adhering to strict procedure are the ingredients of the effective force that is needed to discourage disorder. When Guardsmen are committed to a demonstration march, they coordinate their responsibilities with the local law enforcement agencies. The plans that are initiated are the result of a positive teamwork between police and National Guard elements. This teamwork minimizes the danger of the demonstration becoming a riot. As Guardsmen simulate a crowd breaking through the initial sidelines of the march formation, backup elements immediately move forward. Once again in a wedge, they use their forward motion to push back or disperse the mob. What you have seen in the first two categories of training in this film are the basic formats for riot control training in the Illinois Army National Guard. We now come to the specialized phase, which involves special weapons, devices, and techniques. At this National Guard field site near Joliet, Illinois, Guardsmen train in counter-sniper measures. In Guard language, it is called anti-sniper training. Under the special training, Guardsmen learn to use sniping and infrared detection equipment and train in advanced marksmanship and sniping techniques. The Illinois Guard has a number of select four-man sniper teams that are used in riot areas to support patrolling Guardsmen. Each man has his respective responsibility and specialty that is vital in anti-sniper situations. This Guardsman demonstrates the use of a metascope used at night to detect any infrared rays coming from a hidden sniper using an infrared beam. The proper use of binoculars in a riot area is important. Penetrating eyes to seek out snipers lurking on distant rooftops or difficult to see locations. All members of this four-man team train to move without detection. They must be able to estimate distances, search areas, as well as use the telescopic sight in zeroing in on a target. These men are all select marksmen and are well qualified in fire discipline. This Guardsman is an expert with the sniper scope. The weapon is used at night or in poorly illuminated areas. By looking through his main scope sight, the Guardsman can see his target clearly and that the target is illuminated from an infrared beam, which is part of his sniper scope assembly. In this group are other four-man sniper teams. They're being instructed in the techniques and procedures of firing using the sniper scope. All members of these select teams must also become proficient in map reading and procedures of cover and concealment. They're required to qualify as select marksmen with the sniper scope, which they accomplish by firing at targets at night, relying on the infrared beam to illuminate their targets. These 33rd Division medics stand by for any eventuality. Business doesn't look too good by their expressions. However, they wouldn't have it any other way. As members of the 33rd Infantry Division, Illinois Guardsmen devote considerable emphasis to marksmanship in view of their potential assignments, whereby they might be required to fire quickly from guard vehicles or some other unusual circumstances. In field exercises, such as this patrolling action, Guardsmen respond to quick commands. This response is measured in split seconds. Experience in riot-torn cities have shown that where Guardsmen were employed in patrol actions, success was attributed largely to the precision execution of their orders. For all Guardsmen, the complete understanding and application of the bayonet in riot control is mandatory. Because of the proximity of this weapon to the rioters, Guardsmen must follow strict procedures to avoid any serious incidents. The use of a gas mask is always a strong possibility in a riot situation. The misuse of a gas mask could cause the guardsman himself to become a casualty and reduce the efficiency of his unit. Senior guard officers also train in riot control and lend their valuable experience to training. Here Colonel Kurt Mellon demonstrates the many uses of a grenade launcher. This weapon can be employed to launch tear gas or other small explosives in a variety of situations, such as eliminating a sniper who might secure himself in a building or pin down guard forces. All guardsmen are trained in the use of small arms as part of both their state and federal mission. Our story of the Illinois Army National Guard would not be complete without the 33rd Division Aviation Battalion and its mission in riot control. Stationed at Chicago's Midway Airport, they provide a communication link for the Guard ground forces by flying in small observation planes as seen here. This communication capability is a definite asset in observing a riot area. Using highly sophisticated communication systems, these small aircraft can direct an action or report incidents from the air to ground elements of National Guard command posts immediately. Helicopters, too, play an important role under riot conditions. Due to their maneuverability, they can also be dispatched quickly to an emergency area. Guard pilots from the 33rd Aviation Battalion know every inch of Chicago area, which is a valuable asset when it comes to saving lives. These helicopters can be used to patrol greater areas in a riot zone and report crowd movement that might be undetected by Guard ground forces. We can't overlook one other advantage, using these choppers, as the Guard calls them, for anti-sniper activity. With a sharpshooting guardsman at his side, this chopper pilot can single out an area and get there in minutes. It wouldn't pay a sniper to use a rooftop under these conditions. The 33rd Division Aviation Battalion has 8 helicopters immediately available for any emergency. It should be understood by all Americans that the use of National Guardsmen in riot control is an action executed by the governor of a state to protect lives and property when all other means of law enforcement have failed. In conclusion, Major General Francis P. Kane, the commanding general of the 33rd Division Illinois National Guard, puts it this way, quote, "The larger majority of the citizens of the great state of Illinois do not approve of violent demonstrations. Many of the fine people of our state have served in the armed forces and respect the uniform. They also understand the guardsman's true purpose. The Illinois National Guard will continue to train in riot control and will be ready to combat disorders if called upon in the best interest of the people of the state of Illinois."